Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Sparkle English, where I teach you how to improve your level of English. This is a new video in my popular series on English writing essentials. In today's lesson, I'm going to teach you all about sentence fragments and how to fix them. We're going to talk about 3 ways that we can create sentence fragments and how we can fix them so we can improve our writing in English. I'll also talk about when it is okay to use sentence fragments and give you some examples as well. At the end of this video, we will also do a practice session where you have to fix the sentence fragments and we will correct them together. So what is a sentence fragment? A sentence fragment is a sentence that is missing either its subject or its main verb or does not form a complete thought. So if we look at this little example, and this man says, "He to the store," well, that is a sentence fragment. It is missing a verb. He went to the store. Now that would be a complete sentence. A sentence fragment is not a complete sentence. To fix a sentence fragment, you need to add what is missing from the sentence or join it with another sentence. So first, we're going to look at sentence fragments without a subject. When a sentence fragment is missing a subject, you must add it to form a complete sentence. So here are some examples. Number 1 is a kind and patient man. Now this is a sentence fragment because we're missing a subject. Who is a kind and patient man? We have to put a subject. So for example, my father is a kind and patient man. Now that would be a complete sentence. Number 2, have lived abroad for over 10 years. Again, we're missing a subject. Who has lived abroad for over 10 years? I have lived abroad for over 10 years. Number 3, barked all night long. Again, we're missing a subject. We have to say who or what barked all night long. My dog or the neighbor's dog barked all night long. And finally, number 4, yelled and shouted at the students. Again, we are missing the subject. Who yelled and shouted at the students? The mean teacher yelled and shouted at the students. So by adding a subject, we have fixed all of these sentence fragments. Now let's look at segment fragments without a verb. When a sentence fragment is missing a verb, you must add one to form a complete sentence. So for example, number 1, friendship, a beautiful thing. Now this is missing a verb. We have the subject, friendship, but we don't have a verb. So we need to add a verb. Friendship is a beautiful thing, for example. Let's look at number 2. The scared child under the bed. Again, we're missing a verb. What about the scared child? The scared child is hiding under the bed. We have to add a verb to make this a complete sentence. And let's look at number 3. An adorable little puppy in the park. Again, this is missing a verb. We have the subject, the puppy, but we don't know anything about what it's doing. What about the puppy? An adorable little puppy is playing in the park, for example. So adding verbs to these 3 sentences has now fixed them and made them complete sentences. So number 3 is a little more difficult. Dependent clause segment fragments. Some of the most common segment fragments are dependent clauses that cannot stand alone. You must add or join it with an independent clause to form a complete sentence. So an independent clause is a complete sentence. So if we look at number 1, because I don't feel very well, this is a sentence fragment. This is only the dependent clause. If we had just I don't feel very well, that is an independent clause. But because I don't feel very well is a dependent clause, we need to add an independent clause so this makes sense. For example, you could say, I'm not going to work today because I don't feel very well. By adding this independent clause, I'm not going to work today, the dependent clause makes sense And this is now a complete sentence. Now let's look at number 2. When I'm finished my homework. Again, this is a dependent clause. It doesn't make sense by itself. We have to add it to an independent clause. For example, when I'm finished my homework, I am going to watch TV. Now let's look at number 3. If it finally stopped raining. We need to add an independent clause to this as well, so it becomes a complete sentence. We will go to the beach if it finally stops raining. And finally, number 4, to let me know what to bring to the party. Again, we need to add this to an independent clause. My sister called me to let me know what to bring to the party. So by adding complete sentences to these dependent clauses, we have now fixed all of these sentence fragments. I want you to see if you can identify which of the following sentences are sentence fragments. And if so, can you correct them? We're going to do these step by step and one at a time. So let's look at number 1. Went for dinner with John and his new girlfriend last night. This is a sentence fragment, so we have to fix this sentence. What are we missing here? We have the verb went, but we're missing a subject. Who went for dinner with John and his new girlfriend last night? So we need to add a subject. We could say, my parents went for dinner with John and his new girlfriend last night. Of course, we would make the W lowercase. Now, number 2. Every summer, my family on holiday with our neighbors. This is also incorrect. This is a sentence fragment. What are we missing in sentence 2? Well, we are missing a verb. Every summer, my family on holiday. You'd want to add a verb such as goes. My family goes on holiday with our neighbors. What about number 3? She laughed. This is not a sentence fragment. This sentence is correct all by itself. Just because a sentence is short does not mean it is a sentence fragment. We have the subject, she, we have the verb, laughed, and it expresses a complete thought. She laughed. The person, the woman, laughed. So this is not a sentence fragment. Number 4, ran for 7 miles in the rain. This is a sentence fragment. What are we missing? We're missing a subject. Who ran? He ran for 7 miles in the rain. Again, we would make ran to a lowercase r, and now we have the subject, and this is a complete sentence. What about number 5? We went skiing in Quebec for the weekend because there was a lot of snow. Now, if you remember, we just talked about dependent clause sentence fragments. Because there was a lot of snow is a dependent clause. So how about we join that with our first sentence? We went skiing in Quebec for the weekend. We're going to erase this period here and change this to lowercase b. We went skiing in Quebec for the weekend because there was a lot of snow. And this is now a complete sentence. Number 6, she has many talents, such as singing, dancing, and acting. Again, such as singing, dancing, and acting, this is a dependent clause. We need to add this to the independent clause. She has many talents. So we'll change the period to a comma and change the S to a lowercase s. She has many talents such as singing, dancing, and acting. Now this is a complete sentence. And finally, number 7, Javier, a tall, dark, and handsome man. Again, here we have the subject, Javier, but we're missing a verb. So we're going to take away this comma, and we're going to say, Javier is a tall, dark, and handsome man. Okay, so I want you to let me know in the comment section how many you got correct out of 7, or if you changed these sentences in any other way. For example, you added a different verb or a different subject. And now finally, before we finish this lesson, Can you ever use sentence fragments? Well, in formal writing, or when you're writing an essay or a test at school, try to avoid using sentence fragments. However, some writers choose to use sentence fragments for stylistic reasons or for dramatic effect. So here's a famous example from Pride and Prejudice. "Oh, single, my dear, to be sure, a single man of large fortune, 4,000 or 5,000 a year. What a fine thing for our girls." Now, this is the famous author Jane Austen in the very famous book Pride and Prejudice, and of course, she has used sentence fragments for dramatic effect. We also use sentence fragments in informal settings, like when you're talking, you're texting, or informal emails. So for example, if Tina asked, "When are we going to the cinema?" Jack might respond, "Friday or Saturday night." Yes, this is a sentence fragment, but it's perfectly normal to write sentence fragments in texts and informal emails. Okay, so that is it for my lesson on sentence fragments. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and make sure to subscribe to Sparkle English for more videos just like this one on how to improve your English language and writing skills. See you in my next lesson.